quote-unquote new Xbox Series X news, but teraflops don't win console wars. Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, today published a blog post reconfirming, solidifying at least, and clarifying at best a bunch of information about the upcoming new generation of Xbox hardware, primarily their flagship device, a singular product we're currently referring to awkwardly in the plural as the Xbox Series X. Hello again, I am Blunty, and I am in an endless war against the YouTube algo monster, and I need your comments, your subscription button clicks, your bell rings, and every thumb you can spare in my slavishly desperate attempt to stay alive against it. Oh, and by the way, teraflops are bullcrap, and anyone who gets excited by them is an idiot, and I'm going to tell you why. So, head of Xbox, Philip Spencer, in his Tumblr post, blithers on about the cloud for a moment, seemingly oblivious to various cloud gaming services basically imploding under their own idiocy right now, or indeed under the weight of publisher greed. Hello, Nvidia. And then he goes on about how Xbox employees are really excited about the new Xbox, and people paid to make, promote, and sell Xbox devices and software are all saying super nice things about the Xbox hardware, devices, and software. That's a shocker. But then he talks about some Xbox Series X specifics, much of which we already knew to varying amounts of detail. Top of the list though, a teraflop number. A number which only marketing teams and console war morons cling to in desperation and hope that a big number equals better. It doesn't. A large teraflop number, even a number that happens to be bigger than a competitor's teraflop number, doesn't even mean the games are going to look better or run smoother or at a high resolution or whatever. The most idiotic thing about the teraflop marketing number is that most people who blurt on about it don't even know what it is. And I know this for a fact because I've asked them. I've directly asked both regular gamers about it whenever they bring it up around me, and even PR people who use the term in the marketing. And I'm talking about people who do PR for AMD and Nvidia. People who should know. But they are PR people, they are marketers, not technical people, so it's not horribly surprising that they have NFI. And almost none of them could explain to me in even basic terms what a teraflop actually is, outside of the most vague concept that it was some kind of performance metric and more is betters. So first, let's cover that real quick so we have a little bit of grounding here. What is a teraflop? Well, the first bit is easy. Tera is a metric prefix, like kilo or mega or giga. The flop part is where people get a bit clueless. Flop is an acronym. Well, it's kind of an acronym. It's a bit mutated to make it catchier and easier to remember, but it's supposed to stand for floating point operations per second. So really, if it was a real acronym, it should be FPOPs. But 12 teraflops per second doesn't sound quite as marketing friendly as a teraflop, does it? And an actual floating point calculation is just a kind of math that uses formulaic representations of real numbers. You don't really need to understand what it is for this explanation to make sense yet. Suffice to say, it's a thing computers do with intensive mathematical calculations. Which is why it's a thing gamers care about, by the way, because games do a bunch of that, especially modern 3D rendered games. There's quite a lot of math floating about there. And so a teraflop is 1 trillion of these floating point operations per second. And when you say it like that, that's a lot of math really quickly. And just knowing this much, it'd be easy to simply assume that doing more math every second will undoubtedly, obviously, mean better performance for a game, or being able to look fancier or run at higher resolutions or whatever. Games run using math, so doing more math must mean games run better. It's obvious, isn't it? But that's the issue here. The teraflop isn't an island. It's not the only thing that matters. A teraflop is pure compute, but getting the information to the terafloppy part of the GPU and then back out again so the CPU can do something useful with it is also a huge part of the deal here. Out of many potential causes of a bottleneck that would render a pure teraflop number pointless for real-world comparison, perhaps the easiest of all to understand for the layman is memory bandwidth. If you can't get the data in and out of the card fast enough to feed that teraflop compute performance, it's pointless, isn't it? Like trying to watch I don't know, 4K Netflix across a dial-up connection. Sure, the 4K data is there, but you can't get at it quick enough to make it useful. An exaggerated comparison, but metaphors help. But here's the thing about that. Even that isn't the whole story. There's real-world examples of hardware that, on paper, should have been king, but wound up a gasping, pathetic also-ran. A nice example of this is the AMD RX 480, a GPU which has 5.8 mighty teraflops. It came out late in June of 2016. Literally just a couple of weeks later, Nvidia dropped the GTX 1060 onto shelves. It had 4.3 teraflops. That's fully 25% less than the AMD card. And yet, the GTX 1060 wipes the floor with the supposedly more powerful RX 480, with its whole extra 1.5 teraflops of pure compute. In GTA 5, Nvidia's card was more than 20% faster. In PUBG, it was 20% faster. It was faster in Fortnite, faster in Overwatch, faster in a whole stack of actual real-world gameplay scenarios. And so what I said just moments ago, you might jump to the conclusion, oh, well, the AMD must have had slow memory. Well, no. The AMD card also had 35% faster memory bandwidth. It had more memory even, 8 gigabytes versus Nvidia's 6. It had more shading units. It had more texture mapping units and a wider memory bus, basically fatter pipes to feed its larger, faster memory. But all of this, plus that huge advantage in that big teraflop number, and the RX 480 still managed to be handily beaten, or at best, matched by Nvidia's card when it came to real-world gaming. Even artificial benchmarking was close enough to not really matter. Nvidia's card had a better pixel rate, it had a higher base and turbo clock speed, it had more render output processors. Nvidia's card was even significantly more power efficient and ran cooler. So, when I tell you that arguing about teraflops is a fool's game, perhaps now you start to understand why. In the real world, playing real video games like a real person, that teraflop number, while important, yes, is only one of many factors in trying to measure actual, practical, real-world performance. Take the GameCube, for example, the mighty, beautiful, wonderfully engineered Nintendo GameCube, compared to the PlayStation 2, the mighty, untouchable PlayStation 2. It's another nice example of the pointlessness of the teraflop debate. The GameCube, you see, had 1.5 times the flop performance of the PlayStation 2. But, as we all know, the PlayStation 2 still stomped Nintendo's marvelous Purple Cube into the dust when it came to how many people were actually buying it and actually playing games on it. And I know what you're about to say, console historians, but the GameCube launched a year later than the PS2. And by then, PlayStation had a runaway advantage. Well, sure, but also no. The Nintendo Switch launched 3 years after the mightily successful PlayStation 4, yet it has already surpassed it in market penetration in Japan. And I know what you're about to say about that, but wait, I'm coming to the point. And of course, while the PlayStation 4 has 1.84 teraflops of GPU grunt, and the PlayStation 4 Pro has 4.2, the Nintendo Switch has 1 teraflop. So now I have shown you that teraflops are irrelevant to look at in isolation when trying to compare real-world gaming performance. And I have shown you how historically and currently, right now, how teraflops are irrelevant to the popularity of a gaming console. And as any Atari Lynx owner will tell you, perhaps with some bitterness, popularity matters, market penetration matters. If a console has a significantly smaller end-user install base, then fewer game developers and publishers will bother making their games for it. The Atari Lynx was vastly more powerful and capable than any other handheld of its day, but its install base was so small, and Atari managed to gather so little publisher support and property licenses that it withered and died very quickly indeed. Much to my carefully saved pocket money childhood chagrin. Or, for a more current example in today's climate, the Xbox One X, technologically superior in literally every way to the PlayStation 4 Pro, especially so when it comes to the flagship feature 4K gaming. While the Xbox One X, which has 6 teraflops for the record, is powerful enough for native 4K rendering, a very large proportion of PlayStation 4 Pro games output in 4K with its 4.2 teraflops. They are actually running at a much lower resolution and upscaled, albeit with a clever and sophisticated method, to fake 4K. And yet, the PlayStation 4 Pro is by far the most popular 4K console choice. In this case, it's perhaps largely because PlayStation 4 already had won the hearts and minds war when Xbox so catastrophically bungled the lead-up and launch of the original Xbox One. But then again, I've already proved with the Switch example, it's never too late to catch up. But what it does also prove is that most people, when in the real world playing real games like real people, won't notice or actually care all that much about which machine has a bigger teraflop number. So, with this new spurt of Xbox Series X coverage that comes with this blog post, and with the surely looming counterpunch from PS4 marketing and, of course, tribal loyalists, please keep all of this in mind. And if you must indulge in console war arguments, either for the fun of it, or because you're a troll, or out of some desperately stupid tribalistic loyalist instinct, dumb reason to defend commercial products, by the way, do at least try to keep the word teraflop out of your filthy mouth, lest you make yourself look like a bit of a twit for not actually understanding what that number means in the real world. Thank you very much for watching. I am Blunty, and again, I'm begging you for those clicks of the various important buttons that YouTube give you. I do appreciate it, I really do. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.